My beloved child, come sit with me for a while. Do not rush this moment. Let your shoulders loosen. Let your breathing slow down. You have spent enough time inspecting yourself. Enough time turning your life over in your hands like a worn container under harsh lighting, searching for evidence that something about you is too damaged, too tired, too ordinary, too unfinished to carry anything sacred. I know the inspection. I know the private inventory you keep taking. The places you believe make you less usable, less qualified, less worthy. The fatigue you hide. The emotional dents. The quiet emptiness you have been embarrassed to admit. The feeling that your strength does not stretch as far as it once did. You keep looking at the jar of your life and asking the same exhausting question: how could something holy ever flow through something this cracked? Hear me clearly. What you call weakness is not what you think it is. What you call ordinary is not the obstacle you believe it to be. What you call empty space is not wasted room. The crack itself, the hollow itself, the dent itself, those places you keep trying to polish away, those are precisely the places I have been preparing to work through. Not around. Through. Because I do not wait for perfection before drawing close. I do not stand at a distance asking you to become brighter before I enter your ordinary life. I reached for this vessel knowingly, intentionally, lovingly. Not because I failed to notice the fractures. Because I noticed them fully. And still chose you. My child. There are people listening right now who are carrying hidden exhaustion no one around them completely understands. A parent trying to hold patience together with trembling hands. A provider silently wondering how much more can be poured out before nothing remains. Someone whose prayer life has become shorter, not because love disappeared, but because repeating the same request started feeling like lowering a bucket into a well that seemed empty. Someone recovering from loss. Someone rebuilding after disappointment. Someone comparing their slower healing to other people's visible strength. You are not invisible inside any of this. Not one tired threshold escapes my attention. Not one crack on the rim of your life surprises me. And hear this gently, I am not disappointed by your humanity. I am tender toward it. You learned shame around your cracks long before today. You learned to believe leaks were embarrassing. That tears meant weakness. That fatigue meant failure. That confidence was the requirement for usefulness. That spiritual maturity meant always appearing polished. That usefulness looked like shine. That holiness looked like flawless performance. But those lessons did not originate from me. Some came through wounded voices. Some through fearful systems. Some through people trying sincerely to help while forwarding burdens they themselves had inherited. Yet none of it reflected my heart. Because my treasure has never preferred polished display cases. My treasure has always preferred honest vessels. Common jars. Used jars. Ordinary jars. Jars familiar with kitchens. Familiar with life. Familiar with wear. Familiar with real human existence. You kept inspecting your life for shine. I kept inspecting your life for openings. Those are not the same examination. Shine asks, how impressive does this look? Love asks, where can grace enter? Performance asks, how flawless is the surface? I ask, where is the opening through which life can pour? And often, the opening is the crack you tried hardest to hide. My beloved child, let me bring you closer to a truth that has been waiting quietly beneath your self-criticism. You have spent years believing usefulness begins after repair. After more discipline. After greater confidence. After emotional stability finally arrives. After the shaking stops. After the tears become less frequent. After the tiredness disappears. After you become the version of yourself you keep promising will exist someday. But listen carefully. Someday was never my requirement. Availability was. Openness was. Honesty was. A willing vessel was. You keep imagining that I am searching shelves for flawless containers. Perfectly balanced. Perfectly polished. Perfectly composed. Perfectly confident. That is not my pattern. Never has been. Look carefully across the long history of people I chose. Tired shepherds. Reluctant leaders. Fearful prophets. Fishermen who doubted. Women carrying impossible grief. Ordinary hands. Ordinary kitchens. Ordinary bodies. Ordinary stories. And through those ordinary lives, extraordinary treasure flowed. Not because the vessels became impressive. Because my power remained unmistakably mine. My child, you have been measuring yourself by external brightness. You look at louder people. More articulate people. More energetic people. People who appear stronger. People who seem to move through life with effortless certainty. And quietly comparison begins whispering, look at them. Look at you. Surely God would prefer their jar. But comparison has been asking the wrong question. Comparison asks, which vessel shines more? Heaven asks, which vessel is willing to be held? Comparison asks, which person appears stronger? Love asks, who is still showing up honestly? Comparison asks, whose exterior looks impressive? I ask, where is there room for treasure? My beloved child. There is relief hidden inside this truth. You are not the source. Hear that again. You are not the source. You have been carrying source level pressure with carrier level strength. That is why you are tired. You thought keeping everything alive depended entirely on you. You thought supply management belonged to your shoulders. You thought every drop had to be stretched through anxiety. Every resource protected through fear. Every ounce of strength produced through effort. But you are not the reservoir. You are the vessel. That changes everything. Because carriers are not responsible for manufacturing the treasure. Carriers are responsible for remaining open enough to receive it. The supply belongs to me. The pouring belongs to me. The sustaining belongs to me. The replenishing belongs to me. You bring the jar. I handle the flow. My beloved child. Some of you have been counting drops inside your emotional life. Counting patience. Counting energy. Counting hope. Counting motivation. Counting how much compassion remains. Counting how much resilience is left after another difficult season. You stare at the level inside your jar with quiet fear. What happens when I reach the bottom? What happens when I have nothing left? Hear me. You hand me the level. I handle the supply. You release the measuring tape. I release mercy. You stop tracking survival through terror. I begin teaching you how to live through trust. The widow I once cared for did not suddenly become wealthy overnight. Her circumstance did not immediately change. The famine outside her window remained real. But something shifted. The level stopped belonging to fear. The level came under my management. That same invitation stands before you. You do not have to manage eternity with human exhaustion. You only need to keep bringing the jar. Bring the tired version. Bring the unsure version. Bring the dented version. Bring the recovering version. Bring the grieving version. Bring the ordinary version. Bring the version that feels too plain to matter. Because plainness was never your failure. Plainness protects the credit from being stolen. If the vessel were dazzling enough, people would confuse the treasure with the container. But clay tells the truth. Clay reminds the room, the beauty here did not originate with me. My child, I want to talk about your cracks differently for a moment. You have been treating them like permanent evidence against you. But what if the very place you keep apologizing for is the exact place compassion learned how to live inside you? What if the loss taught tenderness? What if the exhaustion softened judgment? What if the disappointment deepened your mercy toward struggling people? What if the fracture became the doorway through which understanding entered? Not every wound is meaningless. Not every crack exists only to weaken. Sometimes broken places become openings. Openings through which light enters. Openings through which kindness escapes. Openings through which other hurting people finally recognize they are not alone. You wanted me to erase every crack. Sometimes I teach the crack to carry glory. My beloved child, listen closely to this sentence. You do not have to become less human to become more useful. You do not have to become less fragile to become deeply loved. You do not have to stop being ordinary before I decide to pour something sacred through your life. Because I chose jars of clay on purpose. Not by accident. On purpose. Ordinary was intentional. Fragility was not disqualifying. The whole arrangement exists so nobody mistakes the treasure for self-manufactured greatness. And yes, there will still be days where shame returns. Days where comparison returns. Days where you notice the dent again. Days where fatigue speaks loudly. When that happens, pause. Do not sprint immediately into self-repair. Do not rush toward performance. Do not begin polishing reflexively. Instead, ask one gentle question. Can this vessel still hold what he wants to pour? Answer carefully. Not emotionally. Truthfully. Yes. Still yes. Always yes. A crack does not cancel the calling. Fatigue does not cancel belonging. Ordinariness does not cancel purpose. The jar remains usable. The treasure remains precious. The source remains faithful. My beloved child, one day you will look back and realize something beautiful. The parts of yourself you spent years hiding became the very places through which other people encountered grace most clearly. Your honesty gave someone permission to breathe. Your survival gave someone courage to continue. Your tenderness softened someone's shame. Your ordinary faithful presence became healing in a room that did not need performance. It needed reality. Do not underestimate quiet pouring. Quiet pouring changes lives too. If this message reached a place inside you that has felt too tired, too ordinary, too cracked to carry anything sacred, type, I am still his vessel. Like this message as your quiet act of agreement. Share this with someone whose jar has been feeling empty lately. Subscribe and stay connected, so tomorrow's encouragement reaches your heart before shame reaches the door. You were never meant to carry the treasure alone.